Moving from the heart center and out and around, inhaling, exhaling, hands come back through midline, pausing at the heart. Again, an inhale takes the arms out wide and around. Exhaling, palms come down to heart center. Feel your intention alive in this moment of presence. And come forward onto hands and knees. Placing the knees right below the hip joints, the hands right below the shoulders, spreading the fingers wide. Feel the length of the spine. Exhale, round into a cat stretch, opening up the back spine. Inhale, lengthen back out to table, and then open, broadening across the chest and shoulders into cow, gazing up. Breathe deep into the belly. Bring the length back through the spine and round into your cat again. Chin towards chest, navel towards spine, and then inhale, opening into the cow, gazing up. Flow back and forth a few more times with this. Coordinating movement with breath. Find your length and stability in your table again, hugging into the midline energetically to find a balance, extending right arm out, left leg straight back, then exhale round and draw the knee and elbow in together, re-extend out with your inhale. Exhale, draw it in strongly, exhale, and inhale back out long. Hold that pose in your balance. Play with the balance, extending the arm out to the side, bending at the left knee, and perhaps reaching back to grab a hold of the left foot. If you can make comfortable contact here, engage and expand and open more. Then release, knee and hand back to the floor. Find your table. Feel integrated at your midline. And then prepare to expand out into the balancing pose on the opposite side, left arm and right leg. Exhale, draw it in strongly to the core. Inhale, re-extend out. Exhale, pull it in, spine rounding slightly, and re-extend out long with your inhale. One last time. Re-extend. Feel your balance and your strength here with core. Reach that left arm out wide to the side and see if it's possible to reach back and make contact with right foot. If so, expand and open into this, lifting upwards slightly, then release, extending out long, hand, knee, back to the floor, table pose. Rolling through a few rounds of cat-cow here. And then pulling the hips back towards the heels and release the forehead to the floor for child's pose. Breathe, relax, let go. Then inhale back up into your table pose, turning the toes under, grounding through the feet, gripping the mat with the finger pads. Lift up into downward facing dog. Knees still slightly bent. Filling out this pose with breath and micro movements. Knees lowering back to the floor, and lift up with core strength into standing on the knees. Inhale, the arms come up and overhead. Exhale, arms come down and around behind you to plant the palms into the low back. Core strength, opening up across the chest and shoulders, perhaps gazing up and opening into any degree of back bend that feels right for you. Inhale, back on up, releasing the arms, and inhale up and overhead. Exhale, arms come forward, planting the palms back into table pose, round into the cat stretch, and open up into cow. Rounding again, cat. Lengthening through to your table pose. Toes turned under, foundation for downward facing dog. Lifting hips, sits bones up and back behind you. Lots of length through the torso. Shoulders strong, stable, moving away from the ears, broad across the chest. Inhale, right leg comes up, three-legged dog. Exhale, strong core, bringing the knee and thigh in close, one-legged plank, then re-extend up, three-legged dog. Again, knee and thigh comes in close with strength. Bring that right foot through for the lunge. Opening it up with long energy through that left leg. Then take a spinal twist. Right arm opens high. Exhale, bring it back down for the lunge. Setting up, the hands right below the shoulders, and return to three-legged dog. Right leg comes down. Breathe, filling out your down dog. Then left leg comes high, three-legged dog. Strong in the core, bringing the knee and thigh in close, hovering. Then return to three-legged dog. Again, knee and thigh comes in close with strength. Bring that left foot through for the lunge and fill it out. Energize through the right leg, out through the heel, and take that spinal twist. Left arm comes high. Exhale, bring it back down, hands below the shoulders. Strengthen your foundation, bringing it back to three-legged dog. And release, leg and foot back down. Filling out, downward facing dog, evenly from right to left. And then releasing the knees to the floor. Rise up into standing on the knees, and inhale, arms up and overhead. Exhale, arms come down, and again, around behind to plant the palms into the low back sacral area. Strong within the core, setting up your foundation for camel pose. With strength and breath, drawing the elbows towards each other behind you, opening up into any degree of back bend that feels good, still able to breathe deeply into the lungs. Perhaps one or both hands can reach back to the heels, staying strong in the core, opening heart center. And when you're complete with this deep back bend, hands come back to low back, and an inhalation brings you back upright. Exhale, palms come to the floor, table pose, rounding into a cat stretch, chin towards the chest. Inhale into cow, gazing up. Exhale, strong cat pose, counter stretching for the low back stretch. And inhale into table, turning the back toes under, setting your foundation for downward facing dog. Inhale, lifting sits bones and hips high. Fill out your downward facing dog with breath and strength. And then inhale, right leg comes high for the three-legged dog. Strong core brings the knee and thigh in close, one-legged plank. Inhale, re-extend up to three-legged dog. Again, with strength, knee and thigh come in and out towards the right shoulder. Inhale, leg comes high. Exhale, crossing over the midline towards the left arm. And inhale, back up high. With that same strength, bringing the knee and thigh in close again, then placing the lower leg for pigeon pose. Take your time to set up the foundation here. Lengthening out through left leg, top of the foot to the floor, squaring off the hips, and finding length through the torso. Opening pelvis, heart center, and perhaps back of the skull, reaching towards the back heel. Breathe. Squaring off, facing forward, bring the right hand to the center of the mat and open the left arm out at shoulder height, reaching around behind you. Reach back as you bend the left knee, grabbing a hold. Carefully, gently drawing that heel in closer towards the glute. Perhaps the inner edge of the foot might come to the crook of the elbow. And right arm can extend up and overhead, creating a bind. Filling out with breath this variation of king pigeon pose. Feel core strength and stability. And then releasing, lengthening out leg and arm, squaring off the shoulders towards the front, preparing to return to three-legged dog, turning left toes under, strong core engagement, lifting hips high, and right leg comes up. Exhale, release down. Filling out, downward facing dog evenly from right to left for a few breaths. Micro moves, counter stretching. Inhaling now, left leg comes high, strong core, bringing that knee and thigh in close center of the chest. Inhale, back up, three-legged dog. Strong within as that left knee comes out towards left shoulder. Inhale, back up. Strong in the core as you cross over the midline towards the right shoulder or elbow, and inhale, extend back up, three-legged dog. Last time, draws the knee and thigh in close, then placing the lower leg for your pigeon pose on this side. Take some time to find your foundation. You can always make use of props, a blanket or a block under the hip if that's helpful here. Balancing out the hips, extending length through the back leg, top of the foot to the floor, and then find an opening of the front body. Perhaps a bit of a back bend. Breathe. Opening long as the left hand comes to the center and the right arm opens out at shoulder height, reaching around behind you, and perhaps bending at the left knee, reaching back to grab a hold of the foot, gently guiding that heel in closer to the glute, and perhaps bringing that foot into the inner edge of the elbow. Strength in the core, providing buoyancy here in the pose. Left arm can reach overhead and create the bind. Breathe. Fill out this graceful pose. When you're ready, releasing, lengthening out through arm and leg, squaring off through the shoulders and the chest, and setting up your foundation to return to three-legged dog. Strong core. Inhale, pull the hips up and back behind you. Exhale, foot comes down. And again, filling out your downward facing dog with breath and any micro movements that feel good. From the down dog position, looking forward and slowly slide into plank pose, shoulders right above the palms, inner thighs lifted, strong core, upward lift through the pelvic floor. Energize as you bend the elbows, hovering off the floor, and then lower with control, lengthening out both legs, tops of the feet and the arms to the sides, palms down. Inhale, come up into half boat, gazing up. If you like, interlace the hands behind the low back, open across the chest and shoulders, reaching knuckles towards the heels. If you like, lengthening out the legs, lifting them off the floor as well. Hold in this powerful back bend, breathing. Then release with control, everything down to the support of the floor. Take a breath. Then bend the elbows, placing the hands below the shoulders, press up into table, and then shift the hips all the way back to the heels, child's pose. Let the forehead rest to the floor. Let the body release and relax. Breathe deeply into the lungs, bringing a nice counter stretch for the back bend. Inhale, rising back up to table pose. Turn the toes under, grip the mat. Engage the core, lifting the hips up and back, downward facing dog. Breathe, fill it out. Then inhale, right leg comes high, three-legged dog. Pull the right knee and thigh in close, bring it through for the lunge. Energize out through the left leg and heel. Fill out this low lunge. Then turn the back foot at an angle, set up the foundation for warrior one. Right knee right above the ankle, rising up long through the torso, arms overhead. Breathe. Exhale as the arms float down and around behind to interlace, opening across chest and shoulders. Strong core brings a long torso forward and then down into a deep bow. Humble warrior pose. Arms may lift off the back body, knuckles to the ceiling. Release the hands, strong core opens up into warrior one once again, energizing through all the fingers. Exhale, swan dive them down to the floor, back to the low lunge. Fill it out. And take it back to downward facing dog. 3 full breaths in down dog, filling it out evenly from right to left. Then inhale the left leg high. Draw the knee and the thigh in close to the chest. With strength, bring the foot through for the lunge. Energize out through the right leg and heel. Then shift the back foot into position for warrior one. Rise up, inhale. And then exhale, the arms come down around and interlace behind the low back. Open across chest and shoulders. Leading with heart center, come through and down for the deep bow into humble warrior. Arms may extend up off back body. Crown of the head reaches towards the floor. Stay strong in your foundation. Breath, core, inhales the arms back up and overhead, warrior one. Exhale, the arms come down to the floor, planting back into lunge. Exhale back into downward facing dog. Breathe, fill out your downward facing dog. Prepare to come forward with a jump and a soft landing by the hands. Exhale as the hips rise, take a deep forward fold. Move deeply into Uttanasana, perhaps wrapping the arms around behind the legs, gently drawing the chest, belly, and even the face in close to the legs. Keeping a micro bend in the knees is fine. Then release, fingertips back to the floor. Energize and lengthen into jackknife, halfway up, and then exhale for a deep forward fold. Inhale again, halfway up, jackknife. Engage that core strongly. Energize as you bend the knees, float into Utkatasana, chair pose. Find your balance, natural curve of the spine, weight back into the heels, and then the hands come to heart center. From here, we will lift the right foot and lengthen it back into crescent lunge position. Front knee right above the ankle, lift the heart center, then come forward with a long torso and spine and rotate toward the left. Revolved crescent lunge. You may place the right upper arm somewhere on the left thigh. Rotate, drawing the heart center toward the thumbs. Then unwind, release arms up and overhead. Exhale, swan dive down, place the hands, lunge, lifting heart center, and then spring forward into Uttanasana, standing forward fold. Pause, release, lengthen the spine, let the head hang heavy. Then inhale strongly up through jackknife. Exhale again, deep forward fold. Inhale. Jackknife, feel your length, your strength in the core as you bend the knees and float back up, chair pose. Palms come together and down to heart center, finding your balance, weight back into the heels, lift the left foot, Lengthen it back into crescent lunge position. Right knee right above the ankle, lift heart center. Then come forward about halfway, long spine and torso, rotate toward the right. Upper left arm perhaps coming to right thigh, rotating heart center towards the thumbs. Breathe. And then unwind back to center, release arms up and overhead, inhaling. Exhale, swan dive it down, plant the hands. Fill out the low lunge, energy through that left leg, and then spring forward, Uttanasana, standing forward fold. For the next series of poses, you may want to get a block or two within reach and come back to your forward fold. Inhale, halfway to jackknife. Exhale, deep fold, preparing to rise all the way up into Utkatasana, chair pose. Hugging into midline, find your balance, your strength. Balancing, lift the right knee out wide to the side, outer ankle up onto the left thigh, one-legged chair pose. Hands come to heart center. You may stay here and practice balance or come forward, placing the hands onto blocks or the floor for a one-legged forward fold. And from here, perhaps setting up for a flying crow pose, a challenging arm balance, placing the right lower leg across the center of both triceps, wrapping the right toes around the left bicep, looking forward and hovering left foot away from the floor, perhaps lengthening it out behind you, and then coming back and bringing it into a one-legged tiptoe squat. Deep squat, standing on the left foot, long spine, and if you find your balance, hands can come to heart center. Back to a one-legged forward fold. And then releasing right foot to the floor. Enjoy a few moments of ragdoll, shaking the head yes a few times to release the neck and the shoulders, preparing for the next side. Inhale, halfway up, jackknife. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, arms sweep long and overhead, Utkatasana. Find that strength, balance, and then lifting left foot, opening knee out wide, placing the outer ankle up onto the right thigh. Keep the foot flexed, knee out, open wide, hands to heart center. Breathe, balance. Lengthening forward, hands to blocks or the floor, one-legged forward fold. And perhaps preparing for the arm balance, placing the palms, shoulders width apart, bending the elbows, creating a little bit of a shelf for that left lower leg to come into the center of the triceps. Left toes wrapping around the bicep. Look ahead of you on the floor, and then balancing, lifting the right leg off and perhaps lengthening it back behind you. Coming back, floating down, and into a one-legged tiptoe squat balancing pose. Fingertips can stay on blocks or the floor, or for more of a challenge, hands come to heart center. Hug into midline, upward lift through the pelvic floor, and then releasing hands back to the floor for the one-legged forward fold. Breathe and release that left foot to the floor. Enjoy resting pose in ragdoll. Let the head hang heavy, traction for the spine in this last of our standing poses. Perhaps drawing the belly, chest, and face in even closer to the legs, but then softening out of the pose and heel toe the feet out wider, toes angled out, and come into a deep squat malasana pose, garland pose. If this is okay for the knees, bring the weight back into the heels, lengthen up through the spine, out through the crown of the head, hands come back to heart center and Anjali Mudra. You may lightly press outward onto the inner thighs with the upper arms as the palms press together at midline. Breathe into this grounding, cooling pose. Then I'll reach the arms around behind you to sit back and extend the legs forward. Preparing for Dandasana, a dynamic staff pose, energizing through both legs. And then we'll open out the left knee and place the outer foot high up onto the right thigh, if that's okay for the knee joint. Lengthening up through the spine and energizing out through the right leg. Take the left arm up and out at shoulder height, following it with your gaze as it reaches around behind you as far as it can go. You can stay energized through that arm and then eventually release the hand to the floor, helping to maintain the length of the spine. If the left foot is up high enough on the right thigh, you may reach around with the left hand and take a hold of the left big toe, creating a bind in this spinal twist. Releasing, the arm comes out at shoulder height again, reaching forward and extending left leg out long. A few moments in a integrative position, staff pose. And then we'll open the right knee out wide, bringing the outer edge of the foot up as high onto the left thigh as possible. And then rotating the right arm out at shoulder height, reaching around as far behind you as you can go here. Breathe, maintain the length of your spine all the way out through the crown and energize out through the left leg and foot. Hand can come down to the floor behind you, or perhaps wrapping that arm around behind to take a hold of the right big toe. Breathe into this seated spinal twist. And when you're ready, releasing, lengthening the arm out at shoulder height again, rotating around towards center, releasing, lengthening that right leg on out, back to Dandasana, integrative, energizing, lengthening through both legs, torso, arms, and then keep that length and fold forward into a cooling, deep forward fold. Let gravity take over here for a few breaths. And then inhaling back on up. Palms beside the hips on the floor. And then slowly with control, recline back onto the mat all the way, positioning the body, the length of the spine, legs out as wide as the mat, and the arms out at the sides with the palms up, preparing for Shavasana, conscious relaxation. Let the breath relax into a soft rhythm. Eyes close, and the body begins to melt. We take this time to consciously relax, to practice the art of letting go, and to allow our bodies to fully absorb all the benefits of our practice. You can stay in this powerful pose longer, and when you're ready, begin to find gentle movement into the toes, the fingers, legs and arms, perhaps a long body stretch, or drawing the knees in towards the chest, giving them a hug in, reconnecting fully with your body, revitalized from your practice. You roll off to one side, placing a palm or forearm into the floor to help elevate the torso and find your way back up into a comfortable seated position. Enjoy a few minutes of stillness here, feeling your breath, your energy, and the spirit of gratitude, drawing the hands together to your heart center and bowing deeply.